Even before the industry exploded to the point where dozens upon dozens of games launch on a daily basis, I had a hard time keeping up with games I desperately wanted to play as a kid. One such franchise I slept on was Pikmin, and the first 2 games were one of the few GameCube titles that flew under my radar. As for Pikmin 3, well, I wasn't about to spend my hard-earned cash on a Wii U while I was in college and, trying to get my degree and whatnot. Although, my roommate has reinvigorated my interest in Pikmin this year, given how much of a fan he was. But could the new and enhanced version of Pikmin 3 awaken the die-hard fan inside of me? How many Bulborbs will be a part of my downfall? How many times will I say Pikmin before the end of this video? Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. My name is Ty with MojoPlays, and this is my review of Pikmin 3 Deluxe.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Before we proceed with the review, I want to make things perfectly clear. I am merely a casual Pikmin fan. I know about the characters, partially thanks to Smash Brothers, a few of the creatures, what each type of Pikmin can do, the plot of the first 2 games, etc, etc, etc. As far as playing Pikmin goes, I only ever got to experience a few hours of the first game before having to give my friend his copy back. The old borrow from a friend, and then the parents call up about the copy, and it's all a huge kerfuffle. Of course, if you have any questions or comments about the review, be sure to leave them in the comments below so I may answer them in a future review recap. Now, on to the review. In case you never got to play Pikmin 3 when it launched in 2013, the game follows a trio of astronauts, botanist Brittany, engineer Alf, and their captain Charlie. Due to a severe amount of overpopulation, their home planet Kopai is facing global starvation, and so the trio must venture out to find food for their people, which brings them to PNF 404, the Pikmin planet. Unfortunately, their ship malfunctions and winds up launching all 3 explorers into different areas. Will the Pikmin aid them in reuniting? Will Kopai be wiped out by world hunger? Do Olimar and Louie have anything to do with this? Personally, I'm more inclined to believe Louie caused all this. Dude's stomach is an empty void. Much like the earlier Pikmin games, you'll explore different environments while plucking Pikmin from the ground, throwing Pikmin to fend off hostile beasts, and tossing them at objects to bring back to your ship. The only difference this time is that there are a handful of new monsters to fight, some that may be more vicious than previous bosses. You will also be given access to all 3 astronauts, which will allow you to micromanage and organize your time in each area a little more efficiently. You'll also encounter 2 new types of Pikmin, Rock Pikmin, which can be used to shatter crystals and lay the smackdown on enemies, and Winged Pikmin, which can use psychic powers to shatter your enemies' minds before sending them into the stratosphere. Okay, I actually lied on that. They just fly and attack aerial enemies, but I wish it was my idea. Maybe Nintendo will put that in Pikmin 4? Crossing my fingers. As someone who has never had the chance to really sit down and spend the weekend playing a Pikmin game, I thoroughly enjoyed myself with this. The lighthearted music, the vibrant environments, and overall tone put me in a sort of zen-like state. Really, it was a somewhat relaxing time, which was a nice change of pace for me, a player who is more into platformers, fighting games, and racing games, all of which can be mentally taxing. If there was any tension, it originated from the boss fights. On more than a few occasions would I wander into a seemingly open area, only to be ambushed by a large creature like a shaggy Longlegs. These moments, while a little less frequent than I desired them to be, sparks a sense of adventure. It kept the experience from getting stale between scouring the region for food and creating more Pikmin from your enemies' carcasses. Additionally, they added new layer to PNF 404's world in terms of their anatomy and behavior. Does it get as deep and believable as Monster Hunter, a game known for animating its creatures in realistic ways? To say so might be a little far-fetched, but Pikmin 3 still manages to incorporate this level of believability. When it comes to what the Pikmin franchise does best, however, the first thing that comes to mind is the visual fidelity. Ever since the original 2001 game, Pikmin has excelled in creating detailed environments. What's even more impressive is the overall layout of each world. While the game does offer a mini-map as well as a full-sized one, very rarely did I feel the need to reference it. I was able to find my way around very easily thanks to how unique each area was in terms of features and different landmarks. Many games with an open world or many non-linear levels like Pikmin's forget to give the player a sense of place in exchange for scope. It's all about being big rather than letting the player know where they are at all times. So being able to enjoy the game's world and not have to constantly bring up a menu was a pleasant breath of fresh air. But the question remains, what makes Pikmin 3 Deluxe any different than the original version? Well, there's a handful of goodies that beef up the package a tiny bit. For starters, Deluxe does come with all DLC previously released, those adding to the game's mission modes. Multiplayer is now available not just for the side modes, but also the campaign. And surprisingly, the multiplayer is somewhat tolerable when both players have a single Joy-Con. You do sacrifice a little bit of control over the camera, but rarely does it get in the way, or at least from what I felt. What is arguably the biggest addition, though, is the side campaign where you can control Olimar and Louie and witness what happened to them before Alf, Brittany, and Charlie's arrival. You'll initially unlock a few missions, known as Olimar's assignments, at some point in the story, but you won't get to spend more time with them until after you finish the main story and unlock Olimar's comeback. While I did enjoy seeing Olimar's frustration with Louie's dumb behavior in these additional missions, it feels a little lackluster overall as it cycles through the same generic objectives. Defeat a bunch of enemies in this level, gather a bunch of Pikmin in this level, or collect a bunch of fruit and treasure. Sure, it adds a bit to the story and gives us an excuse to see Olimar again, but it doesn't really do anything exciting. The other gripe I had with Pikmin 3 Deluxe didn't come until the very end of the game, and in case you're someone who cares about spoilers, don't worry, we aren't showing anything beyond the first couple of hours here. I will tell you this, however, the final level made me want to eat my hand. The last level is an escort mission where you have an invincible enemy chasing you throughout the map, and you have to finish the escort and the boss fight afterwards under the same time limit. My Pikmin expert of a roommate watched me endure this, and even he said the final cave in Pikmin 2, which is notorious in the franchise for its brutal nature, was more fair than this. Although, despite my problems with the last mission and disappointment of the Olimar and Louie missions, I can't say I didn't have fun with Pikmin 3 Deluxe. It was a wonderful opportunity to finally start digging into the franchise, and even after all my frustration at the end, there's a part of me that wants to experience it again under a harder difficulty. I was playing through all of this on normal mode. The boss fights were thrilling, the story had me genuinely laughing from its witty humor, and the environments were magnificent in visuals and design. Still, I can't help but question why Nintendo wants to charge $60 for what is essentially a Game of the Year edition of a near-decade-old game. Yes, it's a great game, but I feel the price can only be justifiable depending on your personal interest in the franchise. As I mentioned earlier, Pikmin was always a franchise I never had the opportunity of experiencing at my own leisure, only through a friend's copy of which I was only able to borrow for less than a week. So for me, this was a case of better late than never. I thoroughly enjoyed Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and believe this would be an excellent introduction for anyone curious about the franchise. And thanks to this game, I'm actually looking forward to streaming the first two games, even if they are as brutal as my roommate says they are. Did you agree or disagree with this review? Be sure to leave any questions or comments for me in the comments section below, and I'll read them off in the next review recap.